What if I told you the fallen angels were actually the good guys, and that God flooded the world not because of sin, but to erase forbidden knowledge? And what if one of the oldest books on Earth hides alien abductions, giant cannibals, and a cosmic prison for interdimensional beings? Yeah, I'm not kidding. And here's the part that'll fry your brain. Those angels who fell, they might have risked everything to give humanity the secrets of heaven until God chained them in a cosmic pit for eternity. So what were those secrets? I read one of the most insane books the church has ever tried to erase, the Book of Enoch, the Bible's banned prequel. My name is Morgue, I'm an ex-Christian blowing the lid off hidden knowledge to wake the world the hell up, and once you see what's in this book, you'll never look at yourself, the Bible, or reality the same way again. The real question is, when you finally learn why they buried the Book of Enoch, are you gonna side with heaven or the rebels who tried to set you free? Because even if you think you know how this story goes, the twist at the end will make you question who the real villain is. All right, so what is the Book of Enoch anyway? It's an ancient Jewish text attributed to Enoch, who's the great-grandfather of Noah. And get this, it's not some fringe conspiracy scroll. Early Christians loved this thing. In fact, some early church fathers themselves treated it as legit scripture. And get this, the Bible itself even quotes it. So let me get this straight. It was good enough to be quoted in the Bible, but somehow not good enough to actually be in the Bible? I mean, hello, how does that make any sense? That would be like citing a source in your essay, then turning around and telling everyone that the source is fake and dangerous. I mean, what the fuck? See, today, only the Ethiopian Orthodox Church still has the guts to keep Enoch in their canon. Everyone else, like Catholics, Protestants, Jews, they stamped it non-canon, apocryphal, hidden, and you gotta ask yourself, why? What's in this thing that made the religious powers that be slam the vault door shut and say, nope, the masses can't handle this one? Well, let's get into it. The Book of Enoch says that fallen angels revealed secrets of heaven, and yeah, it delivers. To set the stage, Enoch introduces himself as a guy with special access. The Book of Enoch says, Enoch, a righteous man whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw. So Enoch's basically saying that he got the VIP tour of heaven, a backstage pass, and the stuff he saw, well, let's just say later in this story, it's gonna sound like he walked into a freaking alien megastructure. Yeah.
Enoch, thanks for flying Divine Airlines. Today's trip includes hyperspace lightning lanes and crystal palaces.
Do I get peanuts?
But first, the angels themselves whispered divine secrets to him, and now he's printing the receipts. Ready for the revelations? Because it starts off with a bang. Literally, the banging of angels and humans. Let's go. All right, the Book of Enoch wastes no time getting pretty spicy. Angels, known as the Watchers, began lusting after human women. Now, I'm not kidding here. Here's how Enoch sets it up. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied in those days, were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. Okay, sure, you could look at this like divine beings gone wild.
Bro, you see those daughters of men? Let's make some Nephilim, baby.
But they weren't just looking for a hookup, they wanted marriage and kids. So think about it, is this really about horny angels? Or could it be the most forbidden love story ever told? See, their leader is a head angel named Semyaza, and he's hesitant at first. He literally says to the others, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. All right, that doesn't sound like a frat boy on spring break. This sounds like a man or angel who knows that this choice is gonna cost him everything, and yet he still makes it. The other Watchers basically say, if you're going down, we're all going down together, and they swear an oath that seals their fate. Let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Okay, so they make this pact, and let's be real for a second. How romantic is it that it might have been love that caused the angels to fall, not rebellion for rebellion's sake? Imagine risking eternity because you saw something in humanity that even heaven couldn't give you. So who were these Watchers really? Well, Enoch is about to give us a whole roll call of their leaders. Now, there's a lot of names in here, but stay with me because this is important. And they were in all 200. And these are the names of their leaders. Semyaza, their leader, Arakiba, Ramiel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakiel, Asaiel, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zachiel, Samspiel, Satarel, Turel, Jamjeel, Sariel. These are their chiefs of 10. Okay, That was a lot. But okay, now I know half those names sound like prescription drugs or video game bosses, but why list them all? Because in a minute, you're gonna see exactly which of these so-called criminal angels taught humanity things so dangerous to the system, God had to erase them. The Book of Enoch says, and all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go unto them and to defile themselves with them. Okay, hold on, defile? Did you catch that? That's how this text frames it, like love somehow dirtied them. Heaven forbid an angel and a human fall in love. Apparently that's the worst thing in the universe. And it's a big theme in this book. Sex equals bad. If you've ever felt like religion was weird about sex, Enoch is gonna validate that feeling 10 times. But the Watchers weren't just here for Netflix and chill. According to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers don't just take, but they give. They share the knowledge of heaven with their new families, not scraps or hints, everything they can. They taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants. Okay, put a pin in this because later he's gonna tell us where all this secret knowledge came from. And it's straight up portals, firewalls, and what sounds like a freaking inside of a UFO, and I'm dead serious.
Welcome aboard. Here's some crystals and fire portals. Oh.
Okay, but think about what the Watchers taught here. Magic, herbalism, medicine, skills that could heal, protect, and help their people thrive. These aren't gifts you give if you're just using someone. These are the tools that you pass on when you plan to build a life together. And apparently that's the crime in God's eyes, the fact that they handed humanity the keys to knowledge. And oh boy, there's a lot more. See, those women start having children with the Watchers, and these aren't normal children. These are giants. Now, I'm not talking tall basketball player giants. I'm talking literal, hulking, colossal beings called the Nephilim. Now listen to this insanity. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. All right, let's unpack this. First of all, 3,000 ells? How tall is that? Well, we don't know the exact measure, but depending on the standard, it's anywhere from 450 feet tall to almost 2 miles high. Okay, let that sink in. Even at the small end, we're talking skyscraper size. And at the upper end, they'd be almost half as tall as Mount Everest. Things escalated kind of quick, huh? One minute it's sex and herbal lessons, and the next it's fucking Attack on Titan with giants devouring mankind and each other. Now, I grew up in church, so let me tell you, if someone told me this version of the story, instead of Noah's Ark coloring pages, we could have been drawing 2-mile-high giants eating people. Just saying. But there's something pretty sus as hell going on here. Because think about this. Is this history, or could it be propaganda? Think about it. If you were a tyrant god, an evil god, wouldn't you want the heroes who brought humanity knowledge to look like literal monsters? Keep that in mind, because in a minute, you're gonna see the receipts. Now, I mean, think about this. If this were actual history, why the fuck haven't we found 2-mile-high skeletons lying around? And okay, I can hear the frantic typing of comments right now. Sure, there's some weirdo conspiracy evidence floating online, but no real verifiable ones. So what the hell is going on here? Here's where it gets interesting. The fall of the Watchers and the Nephilim is also mentioned in the Bible. Genesis 6:2-4 says, "The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. When the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown." Okay, hold the goddamn phone. The Bible calls the Nephilim heroes and men of renown. Don't you think it'd be kind of an important detail if they were actually skyscraper-sized monsters devouring everything in sight, like Eren Yeager in The Rumbling? That's a pretty huge omission, don't you think? And who were these sons of God anyway? Now, some say that they're angels, which fits perfectly with Enoch's story, but others say that they were the descendants of Seth, Who the hell is Seth? Adam and Eve's son, not Cain or Abel, another one of their sons. Now, to unpack all this, let's bring in Gnosticism for a second, because this is where it clicks. The Gnostics were early Christians who believed that the God of the Bible was not the true ultimate God at all, but an evil imposter, a false God who trapped divine souls in material bodies to be his slaves. And according to the Gnostics, that's why he didn't want humans getting knowledge, because knowledge is the key to escaping his control. According to Gnosticism, the descendants of Seth were special. They were so special that many Gnostics are called Sethians. See, the descendants of Seth had the potential to wake up and realize they were divine beings of light and resist the false god. Check out what Adam says to his son Seth in a Gnostic text called the Apocalypse of Adam. Listen to my words, my son Seth. God divided us in wrath. Since that time, we learned about dead things like men, and we served God in fear and slavery. Yeah, you heard that right. Fear and slavery. Basically, Adam tells Seth that the creator God is an evil being looking for slaves. My point is that the Gnostics would probably have interpreted all this Nephilim as evil giant stuff as propaganda against the line of Seth. In other words, what if it's just spin, a smear campaign designed to make knowledge scary and to turn the bringers of wisdom into monsters in the public imagination? Because if you were a tyrant god trying to keep humanity ignorant and docile, wouldn't you twist the story so that the ones who defied you to help humanity are remembered not as heroes, but as abominations? What if that's why God hated that the Watchers were teaching humanity, bringing them knowledge? This was the gift they gave their wives and the humans they loved. Because it wasn't just about romance anymore, it was about lifting humanity up, passing on everything they knew, from the secrets of nature to the arts to beauty and war. And in the eyes of this jealous god, this was the bigger crime. Which brings us to the Watcher named Azazel, one of the most important figures in this story. The Book of Enoch says, "And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways." Okay, let this sink in. Azazel is basically humanity's first blacksmith and makeup artist rolled into one. He teaches humans how to forge weapons and how to make themselves beautiful.
Darling, blend upward, defying heaven one smoky eye at a time.
That's a sin.
But is all this really a sin? Okay, sure. War is awful. Nobody's arguing that swords and shields are sunshine and rainbows. But what if Azazel's weapons weren't about conquest? What if they were about protection? Because a tyrant god can't control a population that can defend itself. So what if Azazel is down here on the ground with the wives they swore to love, with the humans they swore to protect, passing on every skill and craft he knows so that they can thrive? The text clearly views it as corruptions. And okay, weapons, I can kind of get, war is nasty, but makeup? Really? Eyeshadow? Evil? Come on. Apparently in heaven's eyes, knowing how to make yourself beautiful is somehow a sin, and you can thank a fallen angel for your goddamn eyeliner.
Sir, the humans are learning astronomy.
Shut it down. No telescopes. No knowledge. Should I also ban eyeliner?
Especially eyeliner.
But Azazel's not alone. Enoch gives us a whole syllabus of who taught what. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Armaros, the resolving of enchantments. Barakiel taught astrology. Kokabiel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arakiel, the signs of the earth. Shamsiel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Okay, so let's break that down. Magic spells, counter spells, astrology, astronomy, meteorology, geology, solar and lunar calendars. Basically science and magic 101. The Watchers are giving humanity the blueprint to understand the world and our place in it. But here's the propaganda play. The text doesn't say humanity used this knowledge to grow and prosper. It says, as men perished, their cry went up to heaven. Seriously? It actually reminds me of when I first started getting into heretical philosophy and the occult. I was told it was a sin. Well, that's exactly the vibe here. The Watchers out handing info heaven says you're not supposed to have, because heaven's PR department never misses a chance to frame enlightenment as some kind of goddamn disaster.
Reminder.
Do not fraternize with humans. Violations will result in eternal darkness, torture, fire, loss of benefits, and no chance of appeal.
Have you noticed a familiar theme here? It's the same tired Garden of Eden script all over again. The serpent is evil, knowledge is forbidden, and the woman is the first sinner. Only here, the serpent is swapped for the Watchers, knowledge is still forbidden, and surprise, surprise, women are the ones who first receive the forbidden teachings and are blamed. Different cast, same plot, same villain edit. But remember the Gnostics, the early Christians who believed that the God of the Bible was a fucking fake? They flipped that script. And to them, the serpent was the hero, the tree of knowledge wasn't a trap, it was the key to awakening and the power to reach higher consciousness, and Eve wasn't some kind of sinner or weak link, she was praised as the first rebel and the first truth seeker, the one who took the risk to step beyond ignorance. So what happens if you run the story of the Book of Enoch through the Gnostic lens? The Watchers stop being the evil corruptors and start looking a lot like the serpent in Eden, risking wrath to give humanity the spark it needs to be free. Okay, question time. At this point you might be wondering, is God seeing all this? Short answer is yeah. God is about to step in hard, and the way he reacts is very telling about what the real problem is here. Spoiler, it's not just the violence, it's the knowledge and independence humans are gaining. So get ready because God's about to go fucking nuclear. All right, so things are apparently going absolutely crazy on Earth. And enter the good guys? Kind of? Not really. The 4 archangels up in heaven finally decide to tattletale to the Almighty. Enoch writes, and then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from the heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. So the archangels are basically heaven's executive elite, the divine Fantastic Four, and they're watching the carnage like, God damn, this is getting pretty bad. There's blood everywhere, total anarchy, humans being eaten alive. It's like The Purge plus Jurassic Park plus World War Z all at once. So what do these archangels do? They go into full suck-up mode and approach God to inform him very carefully, mind you, about the situation. And by inform, I mean they start with a prayer that's 90% flattery. Seriously, listen to how they address God in the most ass-kissing way possible. And they said to the Lord of the ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of the ages, the throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Yeah, pretty cringe, right? They're basically saying, oh, almighty, all-seeing boss, you're so great and powerful and totally know everything, but just in case, here's some news. They're greasing the wheels hard before delivering the bad news. Like they know you can't just walk up to God and say, hey, things are out of control. Because if he's in a bad mood, he might just pull a lever and have you drop through a celestial trap door straight into the eternal torture pit.
Okay, remember, start with Lord of Lords, King of Kings.
Do we have to grovel this much?
Do you want to end up in the torture pit?
The God they're dealing with here is an insecure narcissist who needs his ego massaged before he'll even look at the problem. Starting to see why the Gnostic said he was a fake? Yeah, and keep that in mind because later when Enoch gets a backstage tour of heaven, it looks like something out of Star Wars on acid. No joke. Anyway, finally, after buttering God up for a while, they get to the point, snitching on the Watchers. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. Okay, stop. What? They literally just admitted it. The crime, the big sin, isn't the violence, it isn't the chaos, it's that Azazel revealed the eternal secrets of heaven. Secrets humans were already striving to learn. You heard it from their own mouths. Knowledge itself is the crime. The Watchers gave their wives and humanity the tools to wake the hell up, and heaven's response is basically, how dare you tell them the truth?
We thought we were giving knowledge to help humanity.
Knowledge? That's evil. Ignorance is bliss, baby.
Why is knowledge always portrayed as fucking evil in these texts? It's almost like God doesn't want people to be smart, isn't it? Where have I heard that before? All right, it's fascism 101. Keep the population dumb. So the archangels continue their report, also tattling about the whole sex thing, and they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth and have slept with the women and have defiled themselves and revealed to them all kinds of sins. Sex and knowledge, the two original sins in the religious authoritarian handbook, aka the Bible. And you notice it's always those two. Why is sex and knowledge always condemned? Seriously, why is it always like, oh no, they had sex, the horror? Why? Because it's all about control. Control of the body and control of the goddamn mind. You starting to see how nefarious this is? Anyway, the archangels also mention the kids. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. So they're basically like, hey, you know, the angel-human hookups produced giant psychopaths, and now the earth is full of blood and chaos. Now, do you see what's going on here? The Nephilim are the boogeymen to scare people away from sex and knowledge, aka freedom. Don't learn anything, don't wear makeup, don't hook up with anyone you're not supposed to, or else the scary monster giants are gonna show up and eat you. I mean, how fucking obvious can you get here? It's the perfect propaganda. Take something empowering, love, intimacy, knowledge, and tie it directly to something horrifying. See? This is why you don't listen to the rebels. It's the same trick used in Eden. Eat from the tree of knowledge and you'll die. But here it's, let angels teach you anything and you'll birth kaiju that'll drink your blood. Come on! Alright, so how does the big guy, God, take the news? Not well. God basically goes, right, that's it, time to nuke the whole place. He whips out a multi-point plan for the first ever doomsday apocalypse. The flood. Yeah. That flood, you know, Noah's Ark, animals 2x2, the whole sanitized Sunday school song and dance, except here in Enoch, we get the real scoop on why it happened. God calls over Uriel like he's delivering a mob hit order. Then said the Most High, the Holy One and Great One, spake, and said to Uriel, go to Noah and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a flood is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. In other words, he's saying, hey, psst, Uriel, go warn my guy Noah. I'm about to drown everything that breathes. Tell him to grab the family, hop in the ark, and get ready to repopulate after I flush the toilet on Earth. So in Enoch, the flood is God's deadly solution to the Watcher problem.
I'm about to whack the whole planet. They're gonna sleep with the fishes.
Drown the humans they enlightened, and hit the reset button. And you'll want to remember this part, because when you see what happens to the angels next, it's gonna make the flood look like a warm-up act. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember the Gnostics again? Those early Christians that believed the big guy upstairs was a total fraud who trapped divine beings, aka us, in human meat suits? Well, they said the flood was not about punishing sin at all. Get this, they said it was about erasing knowledge. Humanity was getting too enlightened, too smart, too aware of its divine nature, and the tyrant God decided to wipe them out and start fresh with more obedient meat puppets.
Oops, angels leaked the files again. Better flood the whole system.
This is all in the Gnostic text called the Apocalypse of Adam. In it, Adam is telling his son Seth about visions he had of the coming flood and why it's really going down. For rain showers of God the Almighty will be poured forth, so that he might destroy all flesh from the earth, along with those from the seed of the men to whom passed the life of the knowledge which came from me and Eve, your mother, for they were strangers to him. There it is. The seed, aka the descendants, the children who carried the true knowledge of life, were strangers to this God, meaning not his property. That's who God's targeting. And the Apocalypse of Adam doesn't stop there. It straight up calls Noah out, not as a righteous hero, but as a guy who cuts a deal with the false god to save his own skin. And God will say to Noah, behold, I have protected you in the ark. Therefore, I will give the earth to you, you and your sons. In kingly fashion, you will rule over it, you and your sons. Well, sounds pretty generous, right? We'll wait for the fine print. Then Noah will divide the whole earth among his sons. He will say to them, my sons, listen to my words. Behold, I have divided the earth among you, but serve God in fear and slavery all the days of your life. There it is. So the flood becomes this cosmic reset to enforce ignorance and slavery. In the Gnostic telling, the flood is a mass execution of everyone who knows their origin, followed by installing Noah's bloodline as the loyal ruling class over a planet of compliant slaves. When I first read the Gnostic text, it was a holy shit moment for me, because here's an ancient text straight up calling God out for being a jealous narcissist, exactly what what I'd been feeling for years. And if you think that's already insane, check out what the Bible itself says. Genesis 6:6 says that God regretted that he made humanity. Yeah, an all-knowing, all-powerful being regretted what he made? The Bible says the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. All right, I'm sorry, what? How does this make any fucking sense? If you're literally all-knowing, you knew exactly how all this would play out even before you even started. You don't get to act shocked and go, oh no, this really got out of control, when you're the one who set the whole thing up.
So you regret creating humanity?
Yeah, big mistake.
But aren't you all knowing?
Shut up, bro.
See why the Gnostics were like, yeah, this guy's a fucking fraud and Noah's a dick? They looked at stuff like this and said, that's not the perfect transcendent source of everything. That's a lower flawed being throwing a temper tantrum because his creation project didn't stay in line. So why do I bring all this up? Because as we go on, you'll see the Enoch story supports the idea that the real problem was knowledge. It was humans wising up beyond what God wanted. So what if the Watchers were never the real villains? What if they were the last line between humanity and total spiritual enslavement? Now keep that conspiracy in mind, but let's get back to the Book of Enoch itself, because the flood is just the opening act. God is not satisfied with a global mass drowning. Oh no, he's got special punishments lined up for the Watchers who dared to teach humanity. First target, Azazel, the Watcher who in God's eyes is public enemy number one. The Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire. What the actual hell? Let me translate that for you. Chain him up, drag him into the middle of nowhere, throw him in a pit, bury him under boulders, and leave him in total darkness for eternity. Oh, and when judgment day comes, yank him out and burn him alive forever. No trial, no parole, just eternal sensory deprivation followed by permanent incineration. Now, does that sound like a merciful God of forgiveness to you? Hell no. Remember, Azazel was the Watcher that taught armor, swords, makeup, and fashion. In God's eyes, he was the worst. The text even explicitly says, and the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. All sin. Literally everything bad that's ever happened, pin it on Azazel. He's the scapegoat. And I don't mean scapegoat metaphorically. Get this. I mean literal scapegoat, because see, in the Bible, specifically Leviticus 16:8, God commands Aaron, the high priest, to cast lots over two goats. One lot for the Lord and the other lot for Azazel. So basically the one for the Lord gets sacrificed. The one for Azazel has all the sins of Israel confessed over it, and then it's sent off into the wilderness, carrying the nation's guilt away, apparently. And guess what? Many translations of that verse literally translate Azazel as scapegoat. So yeah, Azazel is literally built into the ritual machinery of Israel's religion as the name for the being who symbolically takes all the blame for everything. Pretty damn crazy, right? God's like, everything bad that ever happened, Azazel did it. Convenient, isn't it? And later, we're gonna see exactly the kind of place they'd throw Azazel into. And let's just say it's not pearly gates or fiery pits. It's something way stranger, disturbing, and alien. Next, God turns to Gabriel with orders for the Watchers' children, the Nephilim. And this is where it goes full-on Game of Thrones. And to Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of the Watchers from amongst men. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. All right, first off, bastards, children of fornication? What, tell us how you really feel, God. This is loaded and dripping with contempt. Then he orders Gabriel to incite a giant civil war, Nephilim fighting against each other so they wipe themselves out. Finally, God turns to Michael, which is heaven's military commander, and he lays out the plan. And it's not, let's be merciful, it's straight mob boss revenge. Go, bind Semyaza and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanliness. Okay, what the hell? The very fact that they were intimate with women is treated like contamination, like the women themselves were dirty and corrupting. We've seen this whole propaganda move against women all over. Eve and Eden blamed for bringing knowledge into the world, and here the women are painted as the ones whose very presence defiled heavenly beings and were the first to receive knowledge from them. The text continues, and when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones. How sick and twisted is that? Before chaining them up forever, God wants them to watch every single one of their children die first. What the actual hell? This is designed for maximum emotional damage. The beings who risked everything are forced to watch their families slaughtered, bind them for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth. So after all the emotional torture, bury them underground in darkness for 70 generations. That's thousands of years of total silence, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. In those days, they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment and prison in which they shall be confined forever. Please think about this. No redemption arc, no second chance, just erase them from existence and make sure the official record only remembers them as the villains. All right, so after all the executions, drownings, and eternal torture sentences, God looks over his soon-to-be empty earth and lays out his vision for the new world order. And then shall the whole earth be tilled in righteousness, and shall all be planted with trees and be full of blessing. Okay, sounds wholesome, right? Sunshine, flowers, a new Eden vibe. But hold the applause, because here comes the fine print. And all nations shall offer adoration and shall praise me, and all shall worship me. That is some narcissistic tyrant energy right there. This is not about peace and harmony. It's about absolute control. Every single person will be an obedient worshiper.
Welcome to the rebooted planet. More trees, more flowers, and one simple rule: worship me or drown. And remember, no eyeliner.
And doesn't this sound exactly like the Gnostic view, where God saves Noah in exchange for eternal slavery from him and all his descendants? So when the Book of Enoch says all nations shall offer adoration to me, it's not a vision of voluntary devotion, it's worship me or die energy. Okay, up to now, this book is portraying Enoch as narrating this whole saga from the outside. But now he steps into the story himself. See, according to the text, Enoch was a righteous man in close contact with God and the angels. In fact, the book says, before these things, Enoch was hidden, and no one of the children of men knew where he was hidden and where he abode and what had become of him, and his activities had to do with the Watchers, and his days were with the holy ones. In other words, Enoch was not just your average run-of-the-mill holy guy. He'd been hidden away. In other words, living with the angels, basically on the inside. Later tradition says that he never died and was taken straight up to heaven. Then Enoch says, and lo, the Watchers called me Enoch the scribe. So the Watchers enlist Enoch as their secretary and defense attorney. See, the Watchers know Enoch has God's ear. So as Judgment Day is approaching, they go, oh crap, we need someone to speak up for us. Enoch, buddy, can you write us a pardon request, please? But what if there's another side to the story? See, fast forward over 1,000 years to the time of medieval Europe. Let's talk about the Cathars. So who were they? They were a Christian sect that was basically the Middle Ages version of the Gnostics. They had their own forbidden text called the Secret Supper, and in it they tell a very different story about Enoch. See, according to the Cathars, the god of this world is actually the devil, and he tricked Enoch into working for him.
See? I'm God. No other gods beside me.
Are those horns on your head?
What? No. Just a bad hair day.
The Secret Supper says, the devil sent his minister to Enoch and translated him above the firmament and displayed to him his divine nature. So it's saying that Enoch gets taken up, shown a fake heaven, and the devil displays his divinity, tricking Enoch into thinking he's the real God. But it doesn't stop there. Sealing himself, Enoch wrote 76 books. These the devil bade him to take to earth. Enoch took the books and turned them over to his sons, and he taught them how to observe the form and place of sacrificial rites. Okay, Enoch writes 76 books. See, the Cathars believed that most of the Bible was influenced by the devil to fool humanity and lock people into worshiping an imposter. This they did in such wise as to shut the kingdom of heaven against men. In other words, in a nutshell, the devil fooled Enoch into authoring scripture that would lead humanity away from heaven and make them think he was God. The Secret Supper says, "And he, the devil, said to them, 'See you that I am God, and there is no other God beside me.'" That's the exact same line God says over and over again in the Bible. So from the Cathar perspective, Enoch is a guy caught in the middle of a cosmic con, one where the God he thinks he's appealing to is actually the devil. And the books that he's writing are part of the trap. Honestly, I can't even blame the Cathars for thinking that. I mean, in this story, God is ticking every box on the narcissistic tyrant checklist. I mean, you can't get more obvious. And here's something else I want you to remember. This is more than a YouTube channel. This is a total revolution of consciousness. So if you're ready to join us in waking the world the hell up and making knowledge go viral, hit like and subscribe and share this video. And if you want to help out even more, become a member. You'll get access to a ton of free downloads on inner transformation, exclusive videos, and more. Plus, check out my books. Links are in the description of this video. All right, so let's get back to the Book of Enoch and the Watchers, because things are about to get a whole new level of crazy. The Watchers are absolutely terrified. They know the hammer is about to drop, so they go to Enoch and ask for help. Then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them, and they besought me to draw up a petition for them that they might find forgiveness and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of Heaven. So they want Enoch to draft up an apology letter for them, literally begging for forgiveness. Well, it's a good thing that God is all about mercy, love, and forgiveness, right? Everything's probably gonna be fine, right? Right? Well, Enoch, being the scribe, says, "All right, I'll draft it." And he writes their formal plea for mercy and then sits down and reads it aloud, maybe hoping God's eavesdropping. And then he falls asleep mid-reading. Then I wrote out their petition in regard to their requests that they should have forgiveness. I read their petition till I fell asleep. I guess the desperate cries of damned angels is light bedtime reading for Enoch, but then he gets a prophetic vision from God. And behold, a dream came to me, and I saw visions of chastisement, and a voice came bidding me to tell it to the sons of heaven and reprimand them. In other words, surprise, surprise, God's reply is a big fat fucking nope. Not just no, but now go yell at the angels for me too. Enoch wakes up, heads back to the Watchers, who are still huddled together, waiting like inmates on death row, hoping for a last-minute pardon. And when I awaked, I came unto them, and they were all sitting, gathered together, weeping, with their faces covered. And I recounted before them all the visions which I had seen in sleep. And I began to speak the words of righteousness, and to reprimand the heavenly Watchers. They're literally head in hand, sobbing. And Enoch walks in like, "All right, guys, got the reply. You're not gonna like it. Here's what God's message of love sounds like. Your petition will not be granted unto you throughout all the days of eternity, and that previously you shall have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and they shall fall before you by the sword." Yeah, in other words, nope, not now, not ever, and as a bonus, I'm gonna make sure you watch your kids die before I deal with you. And this is supposed to be the God of love and forgiveness? Hello? Wake the fuck up. The central promise of the religion built on this God is that he's merciful. It says that he's slow to anger, abounding in love. What the hell is going on? Think about it. But if that wasn't bad enough, it gets worse. And your petition on their behalf shall not be granted, not yet on your own, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in the writing which I have written. He's basically saying, hell no, cry all you want, pray all you want, I'm not even listening. That is not love. This is cosmic fascism from a being that holds grudges, crushes dissent, and makes an example out of anyone who challenges his authority in any way. And just when you think this God of love couldn't make it more personal, here comes the dagger. "And though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourselves with the blood of women. There it is again, that loaded anti-woman language. Then he lays down the fate of their children. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. So not only are their kids doomed, but they become evil spirits that live on the earth and are gonna be branded as evil for all eternity. And if God wasn't being enough of a total asshole, he goes full-blown psychopath mode. And now as to the Watchers, you have been in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you. You knew worthless ones, and these in the hardness of your hearts you have made known to the women. And through these mysteries, women and men work much evil on earth. Say to them, therefore, you have no peace. God's basically saying, oh, you thought you were important, huh? You didn't even get the good secrets. And the accusation isn't just you told the humans, it's you told women. Again, more anti-woman, anti-knowledge propaganda. Then, despite them literally begging for forgiveness, he tells them they'll have no peace ever. Not even maybe after 1,000 years time out. Just no mercy at all. This is the opposite of the God of forgiveness Sunday school tries to sell you. That's why they gotta brainwash kids when they're young, because no one would believe this nonsense. Now, if you think this couldn't get any more insane, get ready, because it's about to get so much weirder. The Book of Enoch slams the wheel to the right and sends us flying off the theological highway straight into aliens. Yeah. It's about to go into full-blown ancient aliens territory. See, 1 second, we're in this cosmic courtroom drama with God handing out eternal torture sentences like Oprah handing out cars. And the next second, Enoch is getting invited onto the goddamn mothership. See, the angels go, hey, before we wrap this up, how about a grand tour of the entire cosmos? And I'm talking interdimensional travel, impossible architecture, realms of fire, crystal structures, and literal portals that sound like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. This is where the text goes full-blown acid trip meets UFO abduction. Seriously, it sounds like a guy on a podcast describing his DMT trip. Case in point, Enoch says, behold, in the vision, clouds invited me, and mist summoned me, and the course of the stars and the lightnings sped and hastened me, and the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me upward and bore me into heaven. Okay, did you catch that? Listen to that. The stars and lightning sped him along? This isn't your grandma's version of heaven. This is the Millennium Falcon entering hyperspace. Okay, now keep in mind that I'm not necessarily saying that Enoch got abducted, at least not in the usual way. I'm gonna break that down soon. But what I'm pointing out here is that this sounds exactly like a modern alien abduction account, only it's over 2,000 years old and buried in a rejected religious text. See, next, Enoch rolls up to a wall made of crystal surrounded by fire. And I went in till I drew nigh to a wall which is built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me. Yeah, no fucking kidding, it began to affright you. You just hit what sounds like a freaking energy barrier. A crystal wall surrounded by fire? This thing sounds like the energy shield you'd see around a mothership in a sci-fi movie. But then Enoch literally steps through the crystal flame wall and finds himself inside a large house which was built of crystals. And the walls of the house were like a tessellated floor of crystals, and its groundwork was of crystal. Right, now we're inside what sounds like a massive alien structure made of crystal geometry. I mean, think about it. If you lived over 2,000 years ago, wouldn't this be exactly how you would explain an alien encounter with the only vocabulary you had back then? And if you think it's strange now, just wait till we get to the part with flaming portals and a throne that sounds like a nuclear reactor. All right, so then Enoch looks up. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was clear as water. The ceiling is a freaking star map. Lightning streaks across it while glowing otherworldly entities hover between cosmic highways. And above it all is what sounds like some kind of transparent dome clear as water. Like he's inside a space station with a view of deep space. Think we're done? Nope, because here comes the literal freaking portals. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire. He's literally describing portals, gateways, flaming thresholds of energy. Now, for a human over 2,000 years ago, there's no vocabulary for this except portals of fire. And I entered into that house. It was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got a hold upon me. And lo, was a second house, greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. Okay, because apparently one crystal death palace wasn't enough. Now we've got an even bigger structure with a portal opening right in front of him, and Enoch feels extreme heat and extreme cold at the same time. And in every respect, it so excelled in splendor and magnificence and extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent. Okay, the poor guy can't even begin to convey how huge and crazy this fiery house is. It's beyond words. And when an ancient text says something is indescribable, you know it's wild because they've described a lot already, and this still maxed out his brain. But then it gets next level. It's like walking into the bridge of an alien craft. And I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and the wheels thereof as the shining sun. And there was the vision of cherubim, and from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. A throne made of crystal with wheels that shine like the sun. Tell me that doesn't sound like advanced alien technology and energy systems. I mean, seriously, streams of fire pouring out? This thing sounds like some kind of energy core. And the great glory sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun and was whiter than any snow. The flaming fire was round about him, and none around could draw nigh him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. Okay, so sitting in this throne of crystal fire and shining wheels is God, surrounded by a literal firewall with 100 million entities at his command. And here's the thing, Enoch doesn't stop. He keeps describing more and more, like he's trying to document every piece of tech and detail. But listen, look, if we went down that rabbit hole and I told you all the things he said, we'd be here all day drawing schematics of heaven's mothership. So let's move on, because it's about to get so much wilder. So if that wasn't enough, these entities then take Enoch somewhere else. And they took and brought me to a place in which those who were there were like flaming fire. And when they wished, they appeared as men. What the hell is this? Beings made of pure fire who can shapeshift into human form at will. That's not a choir of fat baby angels. So are these angels, or are these non-human intelligences? And if Enoch really saw all this, was he in heaven? Or was he standing on the deck of something we'd call a UFO today? But then everything changes. Enoch gets taken to hell. But it's nothing like you've heard it described in church. And I proceeded to where things were chaotic. And I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. So we don't have red devils or medieval torture chambers here. This is like you've stepped outside the structure of reality itself. No sky, no ground, just void and chaos. And your senses are screaming because they don't have anything they can lock onto. Up, down, air, solid ground, all gone. And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. 7 stars bound together? Not twinkling in the night sky, but locked down like prisoners, and they're huge, mountain-sized, and burning. So are these really stars in the astronomical sense? Or are these what Enoch's been calling angels in other visions, celestial intelligences, but now chained up in some kind of interdimensional void realm? In other words, 7 massive consciousnesses of light just trapped in void. Enoch asks, for what sin are they bound, and on what account have they been cast in hither? And that's when his guide drops the mic. Uriel says, this place is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. What the actual hell is this? This is not some lake of fire for human souls, but a void realm to imprison non-human intelligences. A prison floating in a chaotic void where stars, living conscious entities of light, are locked down for eternity. This is not religion as usual. That's science fiction cosmic horror. It's Event Horizon meets H.P. Lovecraft. but written down over 2,000 years ago. So is this where the Watchers are held? And remember, this is supposedly the same God you're told loves you unconditionally. So why is he ruling a cosmic supermax prison for interdimensional beings? But get ready, because after visiting this hellish void dimension, Enoch's next step is heaven? And I came to the Garden of Righteousness, and from afar off I saw trees more numerous than these, than any he'd seen, and great. 2 trees there, very great, beautiful, and glorious, and magnificent, and the tree of knowledge, whose holy fruit they eat, and know great wisdom. Okay, hold up. This is straight up the Garden of Eden, except now it's a dimension that Enoch is standing in. It mentions 2 great trees. One is almost certainly the tree of life, and the other, the angel Raphael explains it's the tree of knowledge. This is the tree of wisdom, of which thy father old in years and thy aged mother, who were before thee, have eaten, and they learnt wisdom, and their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven out of the garden. This is almost like some kind of piece of restricted consciousness technology in the middle of a guarded zone.
Whoa. Tree of life, tree of knowledge. Careful, they're restricted content.
No. So heaven is the original paywall?
Raphael flat out says it makes you know great wisdom. This is a direct line to consciousness level awakening. The kicker is that this is the exact thing we've been told for thousands of years is sin. The original rebellion, the reason humanity fell. Yet here Enoch is standing in front of it being told exactly what it does. It gives wisdom. Think about it. In the Bible, God warns Adam and Eve, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Okay, but what actually happens? The serpent tells Eve exactly what the fruit of knowledge will do. You will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Okay, so who's actually lying here? Well, here's the part nobody ever talks about, because here's what happens next. They eat it, they don't die, and in Genesis, God says, and the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Okay, hold the fucking phone. Did you catch that? God literally confirms the serpent was right. Let that sink in.
Relax, you're not gonna die.
Damn it, why are you always ruining my fun?
Why does no one talk about this? Oh, right, because religion isn't about truth, it's about control. And don't even get me started how God says, like one of us. Who's the us here? That's a whole other can of worms. Check out my video called I Found All the Hidden Gods in the Bible to have your mind blown even more. So here the so-called deceiver, the serpent, was telling the truth, and God admits it. And his immediate reaction? Lock them out, ban them from the tree of life, make sure they can't live forever now that they've leveled up. Isn't it just a little sus that God is so obsessed with keeping humanity in the dark away from wisdom and secret knowledge? And that is exactly why the Gnostics said the God of the Bible was hiding something, that he was a fake. In their view, Adam and Eve's eyes being opened was the awakening. According to the Gnostics, when they ate from the tree, they immediately realized the God of the Bible wasn't good, but evil, which is exactly why God didn't want them to have the knowledge of good and evil. It blew his cover, exposed the illusion. Okay, so back to the Book of Enoch, he sees the very symbol of humanity's first act of disobedience, which was, again, seeking knowledge. Notice a pattern? Every time humans reach for knowledge, God punishes them. This theme is pounded in our heads over and over again. Seems like God really hates it when we learn stuff. This also highlights the blame on women piece. It's always the woman's fault in these stories. Eve ate first, Watchers made known the secrets to women, etc. The New Testament even uses Eve eating first as an excuse to say that women are lesser than men. Pretty fucked up, right? This is all one big story about forbidden knowledge. From Eden's fruit to the Watchers' teachings, it's the same theme on repeat. Someone or something has been fighting to keep humanity in the dark for a very, very long time. So the big question is, what the hell does all this mean? Did this literally happen? Did angels really mate with women and give birth to giants? Did Enoch really get abducted by aliens and given a tour of the cosmos? Okay, let's talk about the Watchers part and then get to the aliens. Here's my take. The Book of Enoch is an allegory for humanity's awakening and the forces that want to suppress that awakening. Think about it. The Watchers, the fallen angels, could be seen as symbols of liberating knowledge bringers. In other cultures, we call that Prometheus, the one who stole fire from the gods for humanity, or in Gnostic terms, the serpent in Eden, who they believed was Jesus as the hero, giving knowledge to Adam and Eve against the false god's command. The Watchers could also be like bodhisattvas. What the hell are bodhisattvas? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, in Buddhism, a bodhisattva is someone who's already figured out how to break free from the cycle of suffering. But instead of piecing out to eternal bliss, they turn around and say, nope, I'm staying. I'm going to come back to help the rest of you get out too. So in more modern terms, the Watchers could be seen as enlightened souls who chose to incarnate into human bodies for the sake of teaching and lifting humanity up. A spiritual rescue mission aimed at raising the collective consciousness of the world against the forces of ignorance. But the catch here is that in reality, incarnating as a human comes with built-in amnesia. In other words, you drop into this reality having forgotten your full higher nature with only a faint echo of it embedded deep into your unconscious. This is because the brain acts as a filtering mechanism so that you only focus on what you need to for survival. But that echo of your mission that's embedded deep within your unconscious can show up as a feeling that you're here for a reason that you just can't quite seem to articulate. In other words, you come here to fulfill a mission, to bring wisdom, healing, and light, but you forget the mission and have to spend part of your life waking yourself back up before you can even begin helping others do the same. So in this interpretation, the whole God Nephilim flood story works perfectly as a fear campaign. Think about it. The Watchers show up, they share forbidden knowledge, they teach humanity to think for itself, and the official record spins it as a nightmare scenario. We're warned that if you get too smart, giants will eat you. Basically the Bible Godzilla edition. Okay, but what the actual hell is up with the aliens? Now look, I'm always very skeptical when people try to cram aliens into every ancient text. But I gotta admit here, some of this stuff in Enoch is wild enough to be pretty damn convincing. Okay, but here's what I think about this. When you take the descriptions of psychedelic trips, I'm talking DMT, LSD, ayahuasca, and you compare those trip reports with alien abduction stories and the visions you see in the Bible, they are strikingly similar. And here's the real shocker. DMT, which is the most intense psychedelic on Earth, is literally produced by your body. You have it in you right now, in tiny amounts, of course, but it means that humans have the key within them to unlock those kinds of experiences built in. Kind of takes the whole the kingdom of heaven is within thing to another level, doesn't it? Okay, so here's my take. These abductions or visions, they're not about literally being beamed up in a big shiny metal saucer. It's about shifting your consciousness into a different layer of reality. In other words, your consciousness itself gets shifted to a sort of interdimensional backstage that's always there, but we don't normally perceive it. When a DMT spike happens, whether through a plant brew, meditation, or near-death experience, or who knows what, your awareness can tune into that layer like changing the channels on TV. And people end up using the only language they have to describe these mind-blowing experiences. Today, people say aliens and spaceships, but in Enoch's time, he said angels, wheels of fire, portals, same basic trip, just different vocabulary. Now look, I'm not saying I know this for sure. This is speculative, of course. These could be interdimensional intelligences that actually exist, or think about this, they could also be archetypes, parts of your own psyche showing up in forms so alien that you barely recognize them as you. Kind of like a dream, but cranked up to 1,000,000. I've had a few, let's call them altered state experiences where it was extremely similar to the vibe that is described here. And hey, also, always remember when it comes to this stuff, never do anything dangerous or illegal. All right, so literal Star Trek aliens? Probably not. I don't think so. But consciousness traveling into strange realms, meeting beings that live in those interdimensional spaces, and coming back with whatever your culture calls the vision at the time, or exploring the infinite structure of your own soul expressed as dimensions and beings. Very possible. And in my opinion, way more interesting. Look, whether it's the Bible, the Book of Enoch, or the Gnostic Gospels, these aren't history books. These are stories, myths, symbolic visions. They didn't literally happen, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't make them any less powerful. Entire empires have been built on them, and countless people have lived, suffered, fought, and died because of them. That's no joke. And that's exactly why they still matter, because stories shape reality. The story in the Book of Enoch didn't literally happen. It's a symbolic map of the human psyche and our spiritual journey, charting the eternal war between the forces of knowledge and ignorance. The angels, the aliens, whatever you want to call them, they could be archetypes, the forces inside us that push for growth and truth. They could also be interdimensional beings we meet when consciousness shifts into another layer of reality, or they could be both. Officially, the Book of Enoch says the Watchers are evil. But after everything we've gone through, what do you think? Were they really the villains, or the only ones willing to risk everything to give humanity a shot at awakening? So tell me in the comments right now, are you Team Watcher or Team Yahweh? Drop it in the comments. And if you take away anything from this, it's this. Go ahead and eat the fruit. Learn the secrets. Defy the heavens. Defy the so-called God and anyone that tries to keep you small. But there's more to this story. See, wait until you hear about the hidden gods in the Bible. Yeah, not God, but gods plural. I'm talking about actual other gods the Bible admits are there. This is the other piece of the puzzle. You have to go watch it right now.